Welcome to the Depth Dive. We're here to unpack sources, bring you essential knowledge, surprising insights, everything you need to be truly well-informed. Today, we're taking a really unique approach to understanding cybersecurity. Instead of the usual report or dense research paper. Our sources are actually a set of practice questions. They're from a certification exam, the CC Certified in Cybersecurity exam. So our mission today isn't really about prepping you for that test, no. Instead, we're trying to go beyond just the answers. We want to dig into these, well, seemingly simple questions and extract the fundamental, practical knowledge, maybe some unexpected insights that define digital security today. We're using this unique lens to get at the critical why behind these concepts.
Yeah, and just to give a bit of context on the exam itself, where these questions come from, the CC Certified in Cybersecurity exam, it's got 100 multiple-choice questions. You get 2 hours, and the passing score is 700 out of 1,000. It's a scaled score, and it's pretty global, too, available in Chinese Simplified, English, German, Japanese, Spanish, which really shows its relevance worldwide.
That context is really helpful, yeah. It grounds us. It makes it clear this isn't just theory, right? These are foundational ideas seen as vital across the globe. Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's dive into some really interesting areas, starting with maybe how we stop problems before they even begin. #, understanding security controls. Right, let's kick things off thinking about prevention, stopping the bad stuff before it happens. So the first question from our source material asks, which of the following is a preventative control in cybersecurity? And the options given were, audit logging, fire suppression system, security awareness training, and an incident response plan. The correct answer, according to the source, is C, security awareness training. Now, here's where I thought it got really interesting. Even if the answer seems maybe a bit straightforward, the source's rationale really emphasizes that this kind of training educates employees. It teaches them about cybersecurity risks, best practices, and that actively reduces the chance of human errors or, falling for social engineering attacks before they occur. It's proactive.
Absolutely. And this really hammers home the point that the human element, it's consistently tagged as a key vulnerability in cybersecurity. Training isn't just some compliance checkbox you tick off. It actually transforms individuals inside an organization, makes them a stronger, more proactive line of defense. Think about it in your own daily digital life, right? Recognizing a fishy email, knowing not to click some weird link that empowers you directly. It's a direct form of prevention.
That idea of proactive prevention, especially involving people, it's just so crucial. But sometimes the biggest threats aren't actually digital at all, are they? Which kind of leads us to the next insight from these exam questions. Question 5 asks, what type of control is a physical security badge used to access a facility? And the choices were logical control, administrative control, technical control, and physical control. Unpacking this one, the key insight clearly points to physical control. The source explains it very clearly. Physical controls are tangible security measures, things like badges, locks, guards, stuff that restricts physical access to facilities or hardware.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, physical security is really a foundational layer. It's absolutely critical for an organization's overall security posture. In our increasingly digital world, it feels like it's often overlooked, doesn't it?
It does.
But think about it. If someone can literally walk into your server room, well, all your fancy digital defenses suddenly become a lot less effective. It's all about securing the perimeter, both digitally and physically. #, protecting identities and access.
Okay, so we've touched on laying the physical and preventive groundwork. Let's move towards the heart of digital security, protecting who you are online and what you can access. This brings us straight to identity and access controls, things like multi-factor authentication, MFA. Most of us use that daily. So question 7 asks, what is the main goal of multi-factor authentication, MFA? The options were to simplify password use, to encrypt user credentials to ensure users use strong passwords, and to increase the assurance of user identity. And the source tells us the answer is D, to increase the assurance of user identity. MFA strengthens access security, it says, by requiring 2 or more verification factors, and that, in turn, increases confidence in who the user actually is.
Right. And what's fascinating here, I think, is the nuance. The point isn't primarily about encrypting credentials or making passwords simpler.
Yeah.
Its core job is assurance. It's about providing a much higher degree of confidence that the person trying to get in is genuinely who they say they are.
Yeah.
By combining, something, like your password with something you have, like your phone delivering a code, or maybe something you are, like a fingerprint. It just makes it significantly harder for some bad actor to gain access.
That extra layer of assurance is critical, absolutely. And building on that, let's explore another core principle for granting access, the principle of least privilege. Question 8 digs into this. It asks, which of the following best describes the concept of least privilege? Options included users accessing everything in their department. Nope. Users given minimum necessary access. All users being administrators, definitely not. Or users changing their own permissions. The correct answer here is B. Users are given the minimum access necessary to perform their job. The source explains that users get only the minimum rights needed for their specific functions. This significantly cuts down the potential for misuse or, accidental damage.
So what does this actually mean for you listening and for organizations? Well, this principle applies super broadly in cybersecurity because it minimizes what we often call the blast radius if an account gets compromised.
The blast radius. Good term.
Yeah, if a hacker gets into an account that has least privilege applied, they can only do limited damage. They don't get free reign across the whole system. It's about containment.
But, in practice, isn't it kind of notoriously difficult to implement least privilege really well? Especially in big organizations, doesn't it sometimes create workflow bottlenecks? What's the biggest hurdle companies face trying to do this?
That's a really good question. You're absolutely right. It can be tough. I'd say the biggest hurdle is usually balancing that security need with usability. Organizations often struggle with the sheer complexity of mapping out precise privileges for every single role, every application. And then there's the administrative overhead of managing all that. It's definitely an ongoing challenge to make it effective without actually stopping people from doing their jobs.
Right. That balance seems key everywhere in security. Hashtag securing networks and data.
That's a great practical point. Okay, let's shift gears a bit now. Let's talk about securing the actual networks and data we rely on. We often hear about network segmentation. Question 4 asks, which of the following best describes network segmentation? The options were creating backup copies, dividing a network into multiple isolated parts, encrypting data before transmission, or removing non-critical traffic. The source points to B, dividing a network into multiple isolated parts. And the explanation details how segmentation involves breaking down a larger network into smaller, isolated segments. The goal is to limit access and shrink the attack surface. This is meant to significantly improve security and help contain breaches if they happen. Yeah, and to make that a bit more relatable, maybe think of it like separate rooms in a house, or maybe the bulkheads on a ship. If a fire starts in one room or a leak strings in one compartment, network segmentation helps contain the problem, stops it from spreading through the entire structure, or the entire network in this case. It's basically about creating internal barriers for security. And that's incredibly important for larger, more complex networks.
That analogy really helps paint a clear picture. Okay, now let's dig into how the data itself is kept secret. Let's talk encryption, specifically symmetric encryption. Question 3 from our sources asks, which type of cryptographic algorithm uses the same key for encryption and decryption? Choices were asymmetric encryption, hash function, symmetric encryption, and one-way encryption. And the source confirms the answer is C, symmetric encryption. It explains that this method uses the very same cryptographic key for both encrypting and decrypting, which makes it pretty efficient, especially for large amounts of data.
Efficient, yes. But what's really crucial here, and it's sort of tucked into the source's detail, is that phrase, requiring secure key management.
That's the challenge. That's the critical part with symmetric encryption, keeping that single key secret and safe through its entire life. For an organization, this means, securely generating it, distributing it, storing it, and eventually storing it properly. Because if that key gets compromised, well, all the data encrypted with it is vulnerable. Doesn't matter how strong the encryption algorithm itself is.
Wow. Hashtag tag managing threats and disruptions. That really highlights it again, doesn't it? How often the human element, or maybe the process around the technology, is the potential weak link. Speaking of which, let's talk about the darker side for a moment. Managing threats and disruptions. One of the most common and frankly dangerous cyber threats we all face is phishing. Question 10 asks, which type of attack involves tricking a user into revealing confidential information by posing as a trustworthy entity? The options were phishing, spoofing, malware, and sniffing. The source clearly states the answer is A, phishing, and it defines phishing as a social engineering attack. Attackers impersonate a trusted entity like your bank or maybe your IT department to trick users. Trick them into revealing sensitive info like passwords or credit card numbers, things like that.
And it's absolutely vital, I think, to keep emphasizing the social engineering aspect here.
Yeah.
Phishing works by exploiting human psychology. Things like trust or urgency, maybe fear. It manipulates people into making mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it such a persistent and highly effective threat. Even when organizations have really sophisticated technical defenses in place. I remember getting an email once, supposedly from my bank, and gosh, it looks so legitimate. You can easily see how people fall for these things.
Oh, absolutely. What do you think is the most common psychological trigger these phishing scams exploit? Is it urgency? Fear?
Often, yeah, it's that sense of urgency or fear. They'll hit you with, your account is locked or suspicious activity detected.
Mm.
They're trying to press you into acting quickly, right,
Uh,
without thinking it through. Or sometimes it's an appeal to authority or even greed. Click here for your prize. They really know how to play on our natural human responses.
Which is exactly why awareness training, like we talked about earlier, is so crucial. Okay, let's clarify another distinction that's important in cybersecurity operations. The difference between security events and security incidents. Question 6 asks, which of the following defines a security event? The options were a confirmed data breach, any observable occurrence, a successful exploit, or unauthorized user access. The source explains the correct answer is B, any observable occurrence in a system or network. It clarifies that a security event is basically any observable thing happening in a system or network that might be relevant to security. Crucially, it's an event regardless of whether it actually leads to an incident or a breach.
Right. And this raises an important question, doesn't it? Why is recognizing any anomaly potentially vital? Well, because treating every observable occurrence as a potential event allows for early detection. Early response, look, not every event turns into a crisis, obviously, but every significant incident definitely starts as an event or multiple events. So that continuous monitoring for events, it's the essential first step in preventing or at least mitigating a full-blown security incident. It's like spotting the smoke before there's a raging fire.
Spotting the smoke. I like that. Good analogy. And preparing for those worst case scenarios or, how to deal with the fire if it does break out. That's where business impact analysis or BIA comes in. Question 2 asks, what is the primary objective of business impact analysis? BIA. Options included. Listing IT assets, identifying attackers, determining the potential impact of disruptions, or recovering lost data. The source explains the primary objective is C. To determine the potential impact of disruptions, BIA aims to identify and evaluate the potential effects, the fallout of business disruptions. This helps organizations prioritize their recovery efforts and resources properly.
Exactly. And this really highlights the proactive nature of BIA. It's not just about reacting after something bad happens. It's about understanding the full cost beforehand. Financial cost, reputational damage, operational impact. What happens if key systems or critical data become unavailable? Having that understanding is absolutely critical for building resilience, for ensuring business continuity. Not just scrambling after the fact, it really helps an organization figure out what its true crown jewels are, what really needs protecting the most. #, regulatory landscape.
Understanding those crown jewels, that brings us neatly to the legal side of protecting sensitive data. Our final question, question 9, takes us into the regulatory landscape. It asks, which law focuses on protecting the privacy of healthcare information in the United States? The options were GDPR, IPA, PCI DSS, and SOX. And the source clearly states the correct answer is B, HIPA. HIPAA, it says, is a U.S. law. It sets the standards for protecting the privacy and security of individuals' healthcare information. PHI, protected health information.
And what this really shows, I think, is that cybersecurity isn't just about technology, is it? It's deeply tangled up with legal and ethical obligations. Specific privacy regulations like HIPAA or GDPR in Europe, they're necessary in our data-driven world. They build trust, they ensure accountability, and they protect individuals' most sensitive information from being misused or exposed. And often, these laws actually mandate many of the security controls we've just been discussing. They turn best practices into legal requirements.
That's a really important connection. Exactly. So maybe a final thought to leave you with. Armed with this deeper understanding of these fundamental cybersecurity concepts, how will you approach your own digital interactions and protect your information differently from now on?